I sent out a picture most of you have at your table. It's two-sided, actually. Just keep that. We'll refer to that in a moment. But I would speak to you today about the truth about beauty and, how wonderful, O Lord, are all your works. The Lord gives us, of course, the Holy Scriptures, which powerfully set forth his word with great clarity. But he also speaks to us in the book of creation. And as we've been here today studying about truth and goodness and beauty, I would want to maybe give a talk that plugs a little bit into Dr. McInerney's talk earlier, and maybe just kind of bring it to a slightly different level of, he mentioned experience, an encounter with reality, experience. It's very powerful for us. One of the goals in life is to become a mystic on the move. You're always going, wow, wonder in awe at all the glory that's all around us. Some of my parishioners think I've gone crazy. We had a couple trees in the autumn, and they were just gloriously colored in reds and yellows and greens. Just magnificent. And I said, wow, look what God did. Look what God did. Okay, Father. But that's the goal in life, There's to have wonder and awe. Because you see, if we're going to talk about beauty and truth, we have to talk about order. God has ordered this universe magnificently, gloriously, wonderfully. Beauty is the splendor of order. The splendor, I better be careful here. This thing is, I tend to be gesticulous. Sorry. Beauty is the splendor of order. Listen to that again. Beauty is the splendor, the glory, the magnificence of order. And if it points beyond itself, beauty does, to creation, to its purpose, its design, but ultimately to its designer. And we talked a little bit about the danger of beauty. Well, I'll end with that concept, but just stay with it for a moment. That beauty is the splendor of order. And when we encounter and see and view and experience order, we are amazed. We experience peace. We experience a kind of just a resonance with our own being, because we too are ordered beings. It is said, of course, that the Lord created the whole world. And how did he do it? Through a word, his Son, Jesus Christ, the Logos. And the Logos, Jesus, God the Father spoke all of creation into being through his Son. The letter to the Colossians says that through him all things were made, and in him all things hold together. He holds all creation together within himself. And so we're not walking around in some kind of a mindless machine. We are walking around in the magnificent work, the handiwork of God, being held together, sustained by the very Lord Jesus Christ that we worship today at Mass. Order, 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 all throughout creation. The Logos imposes a kind of a logike, a logic. Things aren't just dumbly here, just arbitrarily strewn about. They work together. There's an order. There's a purpose to things. And so today, before I just maybe give you the overall, if you will, vision of this talk, I want to talk a little bit about the prelude of beauty, and that is order. And then I want to talk a little bit about some of the parameters that were already discussed today. And then finally, there is a peril to beauty, as was also mentioned today in the afternoon talk, in one of the questions that came up. But I want to say again, ultimately, that as we look at creation, we see a magnificent order. Such a glorious thing. Just think of something a little simple like photosynthesis. We send out CO2, and the trees say, that's great, I can use that. And they turn it back into oxygen. And we say, that's great. That's kind of a neat trick, isn't it? But think of every function of your body, every glorious function. You have every atom of your body, every molecule of with all of its atoms, every cell. You have a semi-permeable membrane in every one of your cells that knows how to take nutrients in, and keep bad stuff out. How does it know? It's glorious. It's incredible. It's astonishing. And as we look further out, from our bodies, think about it. If we're not careful, we get very negative very quickly, but every day 10 trillion things go right. Really, they do. And maybe 5 or 6 things go wrong, right? And at the end of the day, but the 5 or 6 things. And I think we must give God a migraine headache. Think for a minute about the glorious things that go right all day long. Every cell of your body up and running and functioning, every organ, every part of your body working and functioning, doing incredible things. Little tiny things in your retina, sending signals to your brain so you can see every fundamental process of your body. Incredible numbers of neurons in your brain and just every cell of your body doing awesome, incredible things, working together in a wonderful symphony that we call life. And I know we got a few things falling off and not working right as we get older, right? But you see, that will be restored one day, see? But at the end of the day, go beyond your body now. Just go outside and, like I said, photosynthesis. And even things that we think are chaotic and troublesome, like take earthquakes or take volcanoes blowing. We need volcanoes. They actually belch important gases in the air that we all need to survive. It does cause some local troubles. But again, God makes a way out of no way. Or again, earthquakes and so on. All of these are part of an important thing. They create something called the Van Allen belts, a magnetic force around the earth that dispels the harmful rays of the sun. If it wasn't for the volcanism of our planet, all the moving and tectonic plates and shifting of all that stuff, there wouldn't be Van Allen belts, a magnetic field that all that generates, and we would just cook down here like in a microwave, pop. We wouldn't be here, all right? We'd be splattered all over. You see, it's incredible, but I'm not done yet. Go beyond just the Van Allen belts. Go out to Jupiter and Saturn. They're out there catching comets for us. I could go on, but you see the vision, the incredible harmony, the symphony, the glory of all these things, 10 trillion things going right every day. And if we're not careful, we something went wrong, and I'm really mad. Okay, and this is how we are. But stop for a minute. Now, the reason I'm doing this is that I want to say that the whole universe shouts, I was designed. I was designed. Order everywhere. Glory. And even the things that seem disordered, as I said, like volcanoes or even hurricanes, their job is to move that hot weather and bring it up north so we don't freeze. There's even to those negative things. The Bible says very clearly, all things work together for good for those who love and trust the Lord. Romans 8:28, right? St. Paul says also, these momentary afflictions produce for us a weight of glory. Nothing is out of control. Even in the fallen world governed by a fallen angel, and we having fallen natures, God can take even the worst stuff and turn it into something good. He shouldn't have to, but he can do that. God can make a way out of no way. So everything is ordered, gloriously fit together. Just all the things that make for weather, all the things that make for everything that we just take for granted. So again, things fit together. They're intricately integrated at the atomic level, molecular level, the organic level, the cellular level, ecologically, and even cosmically. Think of the glory of. I want to just read to you a little thing I wrote here about 8 years ago. We're right now at the latitude of. We're near Front Royal, Virginia, and right now the Earth is spinning very quickly to the east at 750 miles an hour. At the Earth's center, the equator, it's about 1,000 miles an hour. The Earth is spinning very fast off to the east. But at the same time, the Earth is also spinning around, rotating the sun at approximately 67,000 miles an hour. And the sun around which we move is itself rotating around the center of the Milky Way galaxy at about 483,000 miles per hour. And finally, the whole universe is spinning and moving outward at 1.3 million miles per hour. Into what? I don't know. Now, you say, well, what's that all about, Father? There's this incredible symphony of movement in the universe all about us. I mean, we are spinning on the planet is spinning around the sun is spinning around the center of the Milky Way, and the whole universe is spinning and opening up and outward. It isn't just a rotation. It's a spinning, it's a kind of a joyful dance, movement, inward, outward, upward, and all over the place. It's an incredible symphony of beauty and majesty. Creation is magnificent. And is filled with order and purpose. And everything it does helps to give us life and has a purpose, some of which we understand, and some of which we don't. And this, you see, is the beginning of beauty. Because beauty is the splendor of order. There are, some people say, oh, beauty is just like in the eye of the beholder, man. Well, okay. But at the end of the day, some things are de gustibus. You want red wine or white wine, okay. But there are actual metrics for beauty that make sense. And we begin in understanding beauty by just simply looking at what God has made. It's the great archetype of everything we know. He's the great architect of the universe. He's included just every beautiful, glorious, wonderful sign of order. I know Dr. McInerney read some poems. I want to read a couple of hymns to you. One is the spacious firmament on high with all the blue ethereal sky and spangled heavens, its shining frame, their great original proclaim. The unwearied sun from day to day does its creator's power display and publishes to every land the work of an almighty hand. Soon as the evening shades prevail, the moon takes up the wondrous tale, and nightly to the listening earth repeats the story of her birth. While all the stars around her burn, and all the planets in their turn confirm the tidings as they roll, and spread the truth from pole to pole. And though they in solemn silence all move round our dark terrestrial ball, but though no real voice or sound amid the radiant orbs be found, but in reason's ear they all rejoice and utter forth a glorious voice, forever singing as they shine, the hand that made us is divine. The hand that made us is divine. Oh, the glory of creation. I think what I felt was this afternoon's talk, very powerful, wonderful talk. I got happy because I thought, wow, wonder and awe. We need to recover that, wonder and awe. We're kind of bland today. We think we know how everything works. We don't. We're not even close. I mean, how many of you are old enough to remember when we were in school, I was taught that the universe was in a steady state. It had just always been here. And they laughed at the idea of an expanding universe as the Big Bang Theory. Big Bang, big explosion. It was laughable. And now that's all you can teach. And it seems to be so. But again, I think a lot of times we think we know things that we don't. The real answer is to fall on your knees and say, Lord, you've done all things well. I can't even believe the glory of all the things you've done and what I see and what I don't see. Those things visible and those things invisible. You did it all, Lord. And I'm filled with wonder and praise at your glory. Thank you, Lord, for all you've done. Another hymn that you may know goes, "O worship the King, all glorious above. O gratefully sing his power and his love. Our shield and defender, the Ancient of Days, pavilioned in splendor and girded with praise. Tell of his might and sing of his grace, whose robe is the light, whose canopy space. His chariots of wrath the deep thunderclouds form, and dark is his path on the wings of a storm. Oh, your beautiful carol, what tongue can recite? It breathes in the air, it shines in the light, it streams from the hills, it descends in the plain, and sweetly distills in the dew and the rain. Goes on to finally say, "O measureless might, unchangeable love, whom angels delight to worship thee above. Your ransom creation with glory ablaze, in true adoration, shouts to your praise." All around us, the book of creation, the beauty of creation, and it shouts to us, I was designed. Someone greater than I has made me such. And so I would say that we need, if we want to discuss beauty, we have to first start with the glory of creation. And not just this glory, but its order. Everything is so beautifully ordered. Things work together at very intricate levels. There's about 85 moving parts in your eyeball so that you can see. Oh, that just happened randomly by chance, right? See, that's the reductionism of the, look, I'm not going to get into a debate about evolution and stuff, but I'm just going to say what the problem with evolution is that it was often called a blind process. It's not blind. How could a tornado go through a garbage dump and have a fully functioning computer come out, plugged into the internet? That's unlikely, is it not? I mean, look at the intricacy of just those leaves and trees out there, all the beautiful things of the nerves and the neurons in your body, and all the ways they work, all the intricate complexity at hundreds and thousands and even millions of level of things working together. And you've got to say, somebody say, wow. Wow. There you go. I've grown up a lot in the African American community, and there's a little call response in the preaching. Somebody say, "Wow!" All right. Somebody say, "Look what God did." You see, this can't come about as just some happenstance. It's too intricate, too mighty, too glorious, too ordered to simply just be some random thing. And we look at creation, it's not random things just strewn about. It's things that work for a purpose and seem quite designed for our existence and our sustenance. The beautiful scriptures say that Jesus Christ holds all creation together in himself. He sustains it. He maintains it. We are not walking around in a machine. Christ holds all creation together in himself. And just a mystical thing for you to contemplate, but only the church is his body. That is to say, you and I have things in our body that are not our body, like the food you just ate. It's in there, but it's not you. Not yet, anyway. It'll stick to your ribs. But that said, you see the vision. We have to understand this isn't some mindless machine. It's God, who is a God of order, a God of purpose. And this is where beauty and our concept of beauty comes from. Beauty is the harmony of order. Beauty is the wholeness of order and the splendor of order. We speak of certain words, that are common. Things like symmetry. That means in Greek just simply same measure. But like you have 3 candlesticks here on this side and 3 here. Not like 8 over here and 2. That's like, somebody fix that. It's like a stick in the eye when you see a lack of symmetry, right? You want to fix it because there's something deeply rooted in us that wants to see things balanced. We have symmetry. We also have proportion. Proportion is, again, from the Latin, which means something which is properly divided or shared so that each thing has what it needs, but it makes up a whole. Proportion. Or we speak about harmony, especially in music, but it extends into the social order. Harmony, meaning an agreement of sound. Or in our social context, an agreement of the fundamentals. We harmonize with each other. Likewise, even the word concert from music, from the Latin concertare or concerto, meaning to bring into agreement. A concerto has beautiful harmonies and different music, but it's all coming together, and it brings these notes into some agreement that makes sense to us. So all these things we notice, there is order, there's purpose, and it reflects then the beauty of God, who is orderly and has set all things in order all around us. So again, such order, such beauty, such splendor of order. Beauty is the splendor of order. We rejoice in it when we see it. And so again, we have so many of these beautiful, beautiful things. Try to become in your life. We heard today also, what are you going to do as you go out from a conference like today? Well, one thing you could do is become a mystic on the move. So when you walk by a beautiful rose, say, wow, look what God did. And be amazed. I might just stick it. Be amazed. Look at this. When I was a young man, there was an older man I used to take walks with, and he'd stop at every rose. I'm like, oh, God. We are here to walk and burn calories, Bob. And I wanted to walk right by them, but now I know. Now I know in my life. I look at the clouds today. They were just big, puffy. They went up 30, 50, 40, 50,000 feet up in the sky, like big cotton balls. And oh, wow, look what God did. The glory, the amazement, the beauty of things around us. There is an old Latin expression, to have fascinosum et tremendum, which means to be utterly fascinated and drawn, and yet draw back in a kind of a holy reverence. Oh, this is bigger than me. This is glorious. This is something magnificent, something wonderful. So fascinosum draws me to it. I'm fascinated. Tremendum, I draw back and say, it's holy because it has God's hands upon it. The sacredness and the beauty of creation and God's good order. So I know I spent a lot of time on this first part. The other parts won't be quite as long, but I wanted to spend it because you see, when we come to talk about something called beauty, we have to finally realize that it's somehow plugged into order that we see around us. Now, I want to move next from the prelude of beauty, which is order. Order in the house. We go out, as Dr. McInerney said today, we go out and we encounter reality. And we experience it. Well, how am I going to do all this crazy stuff I was told to do today and all that? It's right at the end of your nose. Go out and say, wow. Or look to your children and say, wow. Look at all the beautiful things that go on around you and say, wow. A mystic on the move. And people think you're crazy. Say, well, get crazy with me. It's to be enthusiastic, joyfully orthodox is the goal, yes? We don't want to be this sour-faced orthodox. No. Now, there are no's to say, don't get me wrong, but we want to be careful. We don't want to be the frozen chosen. We want to be alive with a sense of the glory of God. One thing we are deprived of, and I'll move on, I promise, but one thing we're deprived of is the stars at night. We have too much light pollution in our world today. I was once in North Dakota. It was 28 degrees below zero, zero humidity. And I went out for a walk, strangely enough, but there was no wind, and so I was walking with a priest friend, and I said, what on earth is that? This big band. There's all these stars, and I'd never seen so many stars in my life, but then there was this big band, kind of white. I said, I didn't know there was clouds. I thought it was clear. He said, well, there's no clouds out tonight. He said, that's the Milky Way. I'd never seen it before. I'm like, oh, wow. There's that word again, wow. We don't know what our ancestors used to think when they looked at the stars. Amazing, wonderful, glorious. All these things God does. All right. We now, though, move to the parameters of beauty, and we talked about them earlier today, so I'm just going to mention them, and I want to take them and apply them. Take your pictures there that I gave you. Turn it, well, first of all, look at the one with the tree at the top. What I'm trying to show you there is that beauty, that cathedral is beautiful, but you see how it's in some kind of harmony with the order and glory we experience in creation. Those trees lined up like that, and the cathedral echoing, mimicking but not utterly mimicking. It's not an exact replica, but it touches our intellect that sees order And order is the splendor, or beauty is the splendor of order. And we bring that then into the house of God. And it looks like a beautiful forest, soaring to God, like those trees. And so beauty, if it's going to be beauty, somehow plugs into God's good order, whether it be the physical world or whether it be simply the intellectual order, the natural law, all the things that we come to love. Now turn it over, and you'll see a picture of I took this picture back in 2017. The cathedral at the top is the Cathedral of Burgos in Spain. And it's a beautiful medieval cathedral, largely built at the end of the 14th century and into the 15th century. Beautiful, you can see, medieval. Doesn't have all the flying buttresses and all, but it's magnificent. It's beautiful inside, too. Then you have outside in the courtyard in front of the cathedral, this thing at the bottom. I'll just call it the blob. I don't know what it's trying to point to. The cathedral is clearly pointing to the glory of God, pointing to the beauty of the forest, and pointing to the verticality, the soaring heights of it. It points to so many things, but the blob, it sort of sucks all the light out of the room, really. I took this at night, as you can see, but at the end of the day, the cathedral speaks to us. It resonates with our being. The blob says, this kind of looks more like a nightmare. Or I hate to be crude, but maybe like a dinosaur turd. I don't know. What are we looking at here? I don't know. Does it, what does it remind you of? I don't know. Does it connect you to anything? Okay, so let's look at, St. Thomas and all the medievals kind of gave what's kind of a maybe simplistic definition of beauty, that beauty is that which pleases when seen. Thank you. All right. But, beauty includes, again, three conditions: integrity, proportion or harmony, and clarity or brightness. And so let's just look at this picture of the cathedral and the blob. Now, integrity, we were told today another way of understanding this is wholeness. This speaks to the way something echoes. Notice that echoes the beauty of what God has done. St. Thomas says that God gives beauty to every created thing by a certain participation in his own divine beauty, and therefore human art and architecture are said to have integrity or wholeness insofar as they participate and point to the divine beauty in the order of things. A beautiful starlit night, beauty of creation, the beauty of human beings we know, the beauty of chastity, the beauty of love and loyalty, these things that God gives us. The cathedral has this wholeness or integrity because it points to a majestic forest as its form. Its soaring stones point like to the mountains. They echo those. Its colored glass, allows the natural light to dazzle the eye and tell the stories of the Gospels. It's a sermon in glass, a sermon in stone. It speaks of God's glory. And think about the magnificence of glass. You take something like sand and you melt it down and you add some color and you put it up in pieces. You take sand and you show the gospel. You show the glory of the saints. What a magnificent transformation. A taking of the sand and lifting it up to the glory of God. And that's what the cathedral does. It takes aspects of God's creation, and not pure mimicry, but it takes them and in a way elevates them. God made us, it's a fascinating thing. God made all things well. But he also told Adam and Eve to subdue the earth, to rule over it, as if to say, I've created a template, but I want you to take its raw materials and lift them up, transpose them to something higher, more bright and more glorious. Turn them from water into wine. Bring them higher. Sublimate them. Lift them up. And so we take something ordinary like sand and turn it into a picture of a saint or the gospel, some event in the gospel. As you walk into a cathedral like this, you see the history of salvation. You see ordinary stone and turned into beautiful sculptures. Wow. You see, that's integrity. It resonates. It takes God's creation and lets it resonate, or if you will, have integrity to properly manifest its glory. So it has integrity because it puts forth God's glory. It's part of the whole. We take something of the whole and we lift it up and demonstrate it in a special way so that it edifies us and lifts us higher to better and greater things. Ordinary sand, ordinary stone and mortar. Amazing. Wood. Amazing. Now the blob, what does it point to? I'm not sure. I have no idea. It's not integrated into the glory of creation, at least not in a way that most people I've ever talked to can discern. As such as I would argue, it does not have integrity. It doesn't seem to say, this is part of God's order. This is part of the glory and the splendor of order. It's sort of disordered. It doesn't have any point. There's no symmetry. And so what we find with a lot of modern art is that egocentric tendency of our modern age. It's all about the artist and what he thinks. You hoi polloi, you don't matter. The artist has said what he needs to say. Well, I'm sorry, that's egocentric. Art should elevate all of us. It should teach us something higher, something more beautiful. It should resonate with God's order and say, the glory of God has this to say. Look at this aspect of creation, or somehow point to God, or one of his glories. I don't know. I don't see that in the blob. Call me opinionated, but that's my opinion. All right? But you see, I think beauty is not just in the eye of the beholder. I would ask someone to tell me how this is beautiful. And yet you find them almost everywhere today, right? The blob in the courtyard. Some just weird thing. It doesn't seem to mean anything. And we're supposed to ooh, and this side says, and sounds sophisticated. Do you know what that means? No, I don't know what it means. It must be important. They spent a lot of money on it. Okay? But at some point we have to step up and say, look, the emperor has no clothes. This doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless, except in the mind of the artist, and he probably doesn't even know exactly. All right, moving on. Beauty, another parameter of beauty as we study today is proportion, or constantia, harmony or proportion. So this refers to the order and the unity within a given thing. So whatever God creates, it has a unity and a purpose. There are a lot of moving parts, or parts anyway, to our body, but they all work together for some harmonious purpose to sustain our lives and to facilitate us doing all the things that we do. From talking to movement to listening to, reproducing, everything. The whole body, all the different parts work together in a beautiful, beautiful harmony. See, there's unity and functionality. So again, harmony is the order and the unity of a thing. And it helps us to make sense of the world, that many things in this world have multiple moving parts. The trees interact with, as I said, through photosynthesis with us, but also other animals and all the things. The beautiful leaves fall in the autumn and they fertilize the ground, and the trees bear fruit and the animals eat of it, and on and on. I could go, it's all a harmony, a beautiful symphony of God's glory. And that is part of beauty, the harmony or the proportion. So there's integrity and there's proportion. Now the cathedral is beautiful because all of its parts act together in an orderly, harmonious way. So windows aren't just there to let in the breeze, they also teach, just like the whole building teaches. The arches, the soaring arches. The book of Revelation says that the walls of heaven are high walls. And in those walls are jewels of every kind. Well, that's what stained glass is trying to replicate. It's pointing to what we're taught about the glory of heaven and the beauty of heaven. We also see that there's balance and proportion and symmetry in this cathedral. Careful measurements, careful things working together, arches moving to a keystone, all the weight being moved from the top down to the pillars. And in some cathedrals, these these flying buttresses that hold up the walls, everything functional, proportional, working together. It's a magnificent thing to look at. Or you take a watch and open up the back and see all those incredible gears. That's one of our works. But you see the vision is all working together, harmony, beauty, purpose. The dark metal blob. What are the moving parts, or what are the parts at all? Are there parts? How does this thing work together? What's its purpose? The cathedral, every part of the cathedral holds up the ceilings. It's a thing to the glory of God. It's a place to worship. It's a place to be taught. What about the blob? I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid. The artist is, oh, you fool, you artist. The artist has his reasons. Well, tell me, let's interview the artist. But you know what I mean? It's not obvious, is it, right? So I would say that it doesn't have either integrity or proportion. It does not have wholeness or harmony. We finally come to claritas, or clarity. Now, claritas, as we were talking about this afternoon, is the splendor. Something of God's splendor or glory shines too. Claritas it means like brightness. But I would argue that we could also take it a little bit further and say it's through clarity that we can answer the question, what is it? We have the word in English to clarify something, to make clear, so that we understand what it is and what it's pointing to and what its function is. And so again, Jesus said regarding the Holy Spirit, tomorrow's the great feast of Pentecost, Ille me clarificabit, in the Latin Vulgate. He will clarify me. Literally, it means he will glorify me. But what I would argue is that the word clarify, or to brighten or make glorious or splendid, it's splendid and glorious because we say, now I get it. Now I see. The Holy Spirit will clarify. He'll light up your mind with the beauty of my truth. He'll light up your mind with understanding. You'll start connecting the dots of all that I've said and taught you, and you will suddenly have your mind bright with the glory of truth. So the word clarify can mean, yes, to make beautiful, bright, or splendid, but it also means something inside, that my mind is lit up now. You know, the old thing, the old light bulb. Now I see, right? And so on. So splendor, yes, clarity. And so again, we see here, the gorgeous cathedral reflects the light shining on it, even at night. See, I took this picture at night. And the moonlight and some spotlights were reflecting on its beautiful glory. Its soaring majesty reminds us of God and the magnificence of the forest and the trees and what God has done. Its sculptures teach us and remind us of the saints. Its windows teach us. All these things, brighten our lives and clarify, teach us, make plain to us. Especially in those years when ordinary people just generally didn't know how to read. They weren't stupid, but if you had to be so rich to own a book, reading was kind of an unnecessary luxury. Only a few people could read. So they taught through images, through cathedrals, through pageantry, through splendor. But it all pointed to God. Otherwise, as we heard today, it's spectacle. It's not mystery. All right. So, again, the key point here finally is this. Well, not finally, I have one more point to make, a cautionary note as we end. But the main point here is this, that beauty is linked to order. There is a certain peace. What is peace? Peace is the rest of order, the relaxing, the joy that order brings. We all know that order brings peace. Why? When our lives are in order, we sleep well. When chaos wounds our order and we're distressed or seek to restore order, we're in chaos, we're anxious, we're fearful. We feel like we're in the darkness. The perception, though, of order bestows a kind of satisfaction, a kind of a fulfillment, a serenity when we see and experience order. Order, beauty is the splendor of order. Peace is the rest of order. To have serenity in the order because we're plugged into the order that God has made. So beauty isn't just in the eye of the beholder. There's a certain truth to beauty. It's linked to God and what he's done and his order. All right. I hope that makes sense. There is one final thing I would add, and it was brought up in the talk this afternoon, and I'm glad it was, because there is a peril of beauty. There is a peril. I want to read to you some things that St. Augustine said. This is from the City of God in the 15th book, in paragraph 22, if you want to think. St. Augustine says this: beauty is indeed a good gift of God, but that the good may not think it a great good, God dispenses beauty even to the wicked. And thus beauty, which is indeed God's handiwork, but only temporal and carnal and lower kind of good, is not fitly loved in preference to God, who is the eternal, spiritual, and unchangeable good and beauty. But he says there's nothing wrong with beauty. Beauty is great, but when the miser prefers gold to justice, it's no fault of the gold. It's the fault of the man. And so with every created thing. And so again, we're cautioned that sometimes beauty can distract us. Sometimes what we call beautiful is a sort of an appropriated beauty. You know, Satan doesn't come with horns, 7 heads and 10 horns. Say, hi, I'm Satan. And where's my roach motel, you know? He comes as an angel of light. He comes with so many things. It'd be more loving not to confront them about this. Don't say anything. Come on, he speaks to us in this way. Now, I want to tell you something. It's a little risky, and to all in the room, I want to just say, hang on with me as I give you this analogy. But a lot of young men come and say, Father, I struggle with looking at the ladies a lot, and they're all so beautiful. And so I say to them, okay, I'll bet she is beautiful, but wait till she opens her mouth. Now, I mean that actually in respect, not in, because that's not just a body there. That's a human being, a person. And she has opinions. She has views. She may not be that beautiful inside. She may be. She might not be. She might be like, oh my God, yeah, yeah. And she come up with all this woke stuff, and all of a sudden she's going crazy woke on you, and So there's a tendency, if we're not careful, for beauty to distract us. And we talked a little bit about that this afternoon, so I won't develop it much more. We want to emphasize today the glory, the beauty, the majesty of the truth of beauty, and that we have some parameters for it that make sense, that are rooted in God's order. But there are some aspects to beauty that we just have to be careful about. Proverbs says, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. See, all beauty isn't just physical beauty. There can be physical beauty that isn't always connected to actual goodness and truth. Most, if you will, there's a kind of the way the flowers try to attract the different bugs and so on. They look beautiful and the bugs come and take, but there's a certain beauty that can attract us. But that beauty might also mislead us. So we should have a care, especially when it comes to matters of what we've come to call lust. There's a perversion of what is meant by beauty. A beautiful woman you could look at all day. But is she beautiful inside? Or a man? Could be handsome to some of you, but is he a good man? Well, sometimes the appearance can deceive us. So the Lord reminds us that man sees the appearance, but God looks into the heart. And that's where the truest beauty is to be found. A woman, a man who fears the Lord is to be praised. I used to be young, tan, and trim. Now I'm old, white, and fat. I hope, though, my soul has actually become more beautiful because I'm more plugged into God. And I love God so much more, and I'm more alive than I ever was in my 20s. I would never want to be in my 20s again. I'd be tan and trim. I'd have all my hair and all that stuff. But I didn't know. There were so many things that were wrong with me in my 20s. And God's done such work. Yes. So when I was in the seminary, I'll finish with this idea. When I was in the seminary, they said to me, you need to become more well-rounded. So I did. And then they said to me, now you need to get in shape. And I said, well, round is a shape. But all that's just a way of saying there comes a moment, I think, when I I had to put on softer garments and accept in humility that, I'm getting older and it just is harder. And there are things I could do to improve my diet. That's all that. I get that. I'm not making excuses, but I'm just saying that charm, beauty, handsomeness, whatever we want to call it, can be deceptive. And just keep that in your quiver. But as a general rule today, what we're saying is, what God has done is awesome, wonderful, glorious, beautiful. Become a mystic on the move and see the glory. Look at the clouds and tap someone on the shoulder and say, look what God did. Some people say, how can I evangelize? Well, you don't, sometimes you go up to a stranger and say, you're going to die in your sins unless you come to believe in Jesus. Well, that's one way. But what if you went up and said to them, look at that, do you see that? Look what God did. What do you think? Talking to me like that? Yeah. Look. And I'm surprised that in my own journey, in the African-American community I've lived in most of my priesthood, there's a great openness to this idea. I'll go to the Safeway, and someone will come up to me and say, Pastor, you got a word for me today? I better be on my game. Yes, I do. And I give him the Lord said, and I'll give him a word. He says, Pastor, that's great. But the idea is that we sometimes need to find common ground with people and say, look, isn't that beautiful? Have you seen that? Look at that sunset. Find things of beauty. I'll give you a quick illustration, and I really need to end. I'm sorry. What is the shortest distance between two people on this planet? What is the greatest intimacy that most of us can experience? And it's not about sex. It's laughter. Laughter. Laughter is amazing. Even enemies can laugh together. Something of the paradox of some of the things in life or in creation strike us, and we laugh. We laugh. It's almost uncontrollable. We laugh. There's something deeply wired, and we have a laugh together. It's a form of intimacy. And you can go beyond that and say, from that laughter to the just enthusiasm. Look at that tree. Look at the autumn colors. Talk to people. Point out things to them. Even strangers, you can go up and say, wow, look at that. Yeah, that is beautiful. Are you crazy? But you become joyfully orthodox, and you point beyond the cloud, and you say, look what God did. Wow. So beauty, goodness, and truth, they come together beautifully in God and what he has done. And if we're going to define beauty at all, somehow it's related to his good order. Chaos and confusion and dark, icky colors and seven-headed dragons with 10 horns, that's ugly stuff. But the beauty of God's order, symmetry, and all the magnificence, that's where beauty resides. And beauty is wonderful. It's glorious. Be careful about that perversion of it that we call lust, but rejoice in it and laugh and have a joy in what God has done. Go out and be joyfully orthodox, always pointing to God, looking beyond the event or the moment and just saying, look what God did. Amen.